Thank you very much. So some of you might have seen already that the title of my talk has actually changed a bit. I got rid of the exclusively S3 and SQS, and because I'm actually presenting on two different ways to sort of accomplish the same task. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm a systems engineer. I guess I help the company organize, make things simpler, automate different tasks, and more interestingly, I guess, scale those things. And I work with developers like my colleague right here, Matt, who, yeah, it's a whiz at helping with this sort of thing. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about how we use FME Cloud and AWS, and how these two together, in my opinion, are two powerful tools that everybody should be adding to their toolbox. Okay, so why are we doing what we do? I think one of the number one things is we want to minimize our cost. We have cost for our large data management processes that we have to run. I'm going to talk about two different projects. They each have 15 plus workspaces that need to be run, sort of in hierarchy, where one needs to be done first, and then consecutively thereafter. Our data is usually stored in sort of a tiled data structure. So some of these projects are so large that you can't run the data on the entire project all at once. So you got to sort of run it in a tiled manner. Some of those processes on each tile can take anywhere between 5 and 60 minutes, and some of these tiles can be hundreds to thousands of different tiles. So how do you do that at all those tasks at a scale like that? So I'm not going to show you too many workspaces. This is I might show you one more set of, but we have workspaces that need to be run to generate some support data for later on in the process, do some data QA workspaces, some base data preparation workspaces, and this is actually for our municipal risk assessment tool, which is a tool to help municipalities look at their risk of sanitary sewer backup. We developed it for the insurance industry. And over on the very right here, bottom right, there's a bunch of indicator workspaces. And in this case, there's actually 12 of them, depending on the data that's coming into this pipeline. So I think there alone is like 20 workspaces. And how do you then run them consecutively? How do you orchestrate, how that is run? For this municipal risk assessment tool, we were using Amazon S3 as the main data store. Data that comes from the client through the web application that they upload. And then Amazon SQS as the in-between tool between the data being available and the process to be run. It sort of holds the message of the process that needs to actually be run, and then we use FME Cloud on a scheduled basis. Run it for like 8 hours a day during usual work, business hours that a potential client could need. So this is a AWS architecture diagram. You can see at the very bottom, there's the user does a registration process. They upload data, they validate some data, they get some validation results, and then they submit it to the rest of the analysis process. Between each one of those user-driven steps and actually FME Cloud running something at the top, there is a Amazon SQS queue. And so, messages get pushed to queue, FME Cloud runs something, and so on and so on. But S3 as the main data store. And again, I sort of mentioned those 20 workbenches across the different across the top. So this is using SQS, S3, and SNS, which is a simple notification service. You can see after validation is done, SNS actually sends a notification that the validation results are ready. So the most difficult part of this is actually, well, for me at the time, I actually used Stuart Harper's help a lot for this. It was just me understanding the SQS subscriber, how it works with the topic, and then really taking that SQS message and parsing the JSON. It's one thing that befuddled me for a while, but after Stuart helped me out, it really made sense. And so the cool part of this, being asynchronous, is during that time that FME Cloud was unavailable or we turned it off, the rest of the system still functions on its own. Amazon SQS still sits there, S3 still sits there. They're relatively cheap. And as far as the client is concerned, the process is still working. They don't have to know that other tool is unavailable. Now, the one problem that I sort of had with this was priority. How to run things. How do you ensure priority? And you could use FME Cloud and FME Server, and you could apply a priority to the actual workspace that had to be run. But it still wasn't that simple. The other trouble was, or the other problem was troubleshooting the origin of a failure. Just because one queue or a message, FME Cloud got a message, from a queue, and that queue happened to fail, doesn't mean that other queues wouldn't just continue running. And how do you halt other queuing and other SQS messages from running a job, and how do you initiate that requeuing? So it worked, but not completely foolproof. And this is where we move over to the second part of this, a little more exciting, a little more cutting edge. Cutting edge as in this tool that we're using, Amazon just came out with last November. I think it's been really exciting to use it. Matt might, my colleague Matt might agree with me on that. Really interesting using these things, but also come along with some warts. So this other process I'm talking about is again using Amazon S3 as the main data repository. But this is where we use this new tool called Amazon Step Functions. It's a visual workflow tool, so very much like FME and building an FME workspace. It's part of Amazon's serverless platform, and ultimately it makes it just easy to orchestrate Amazon Lambda functions. And then you can get a Lambda function to actually run something like start up FME Cloud. You could get Lambda to start up an FME job. Lambda just is a serverless part of Amazon's serverless platform. It just lets you run some code. That code could be in a Node.js. It could be Java, Python, C, and you don't have to manage these servers. It just Amazon does that beautifully for you. The other parts to that, I already mentioned, Lambda, And in this case, since you can use Lambda to start up FME Cloud, we can make it on demand. So you can, as a workspace is needed to run, you can start FME Cloud, check that the cloud is running, run the space, and then shut it all down afterwards. So this is actually our entire step function for data management of our high-resolution inventory service. At the top, data comes in from the client. Data's QA'd when it becomes part of the project. The sort of middle section is taking that QA'd data, whether it's LiDAR, imagery, and other spatial unit-related data. At the middle part is tiling that data, and generating DEMs and normalizing some LiDAR and generating LiDAR tiles. And then the bottom piece is the actual creation of indicators which go into our high-resolution inventory. This is a very basic, or if you knew what actually went on behind this, it's just a whole bunch of weights. So this is just how it could look, and this is where we are going to get eventually. But I am going to actually demo a small little bit of this shortly. We took a video of it. The beauty of this is, the beauty of this. Oops, let me go back here. Beauty of this is each one of these step functions ultimately has a task. It has a resource, and it has a next, or it could be an end. So it's a state, and that state has a task, a resource, and a next or an end. And that task could be manually wait for something to happen, i.e. wait for a file to appear on S3. And if that file appears like it's supposed to, it will go on to the next step. Initially, all these boxes end up being white. As it's running, it's blue, and when they're all done, they turn green. Again, I'll show you that. So this is sort of the again, architecture diagram to the thing. User uploads data, waits for validation results. So if something failed, that could repeat. But after that, there's a series of states that occur, Amazon step functions. Each one of those can run a Lambda function, which can call FME Cloud to run. Here is just an example just of the state machine at the top. In this case, it's a simple. The bottom is the Lambda function. It waits for a simple manual step to occur. Does this file exist on S3? If it does, that step is done, and that being the file. So the output path file in the middle, does that occur on S3? If it does, then that step is done. So each one of these steps could be a manual thing, just waiting for the user to manually do something to make a file appear somewhere. Or alternatively, which I'll demo, is a step function to actually submit a job to FME Cloud. For all those developers out there, my colleague Matt right here developed a node package for FME Cloud API and an FME Server API. It's up on Node Package Manager, so you can do npm install and get either of those. I'll give you a reference to at the end of the talk. But this is, so here's again, this state machine, this step just submits a job to FME Cloud to run. It needs to know the repository, it needs to know which workspace to run, and it has to know the array of parameters that are needed for that workspace. Okay, so this is the demo. The assumption right here is the first two are waiting for source LiDAR to appear from the client, and they will turn green, and then the process will go through. I will talk through this. It takes about 2 minutes or so. Really, the process takes much longer, but we've shortened it down. So yeah, it's waiting for the source LiDAR and the source boundary file to appear. There they have appeared. Now it's waiting for this step is actually waiting for between source and project. We actually do a QA QC process. Right now it's manual, but really this is waiting for just a file to appear on S3 in a certain folder in a certain bucket. When it's there, it will turn green. So we're off manually QAing some data right now. Oh, there it's done. Now it's going to start off FME server. So this is using the API to start FME server. Takes a little bit of time, so you need to wait for it to start. You can see it's provisioning that server right now, and then it'll boot it up. And after it starts running, we'll then go back over and start this. This basically takes a polygon area, huge polygon area, tiles it up into a tiling scheme. There it's actually running, or actually completed up on the cloud. Took about 3 seconds, I think, to complete that one. And now it's taking project LiDAR data and developing DEM, tiling that LiDAR, normalizing. Here, yeah, this is the completed one, generating a tiled DEM and tiled LiDAR. And the last step is it takes each one of those LiDAR tiles and height normalizes them. And yeah, that's the end of that. So just that's pretty much the end. I just wanted to reiterate just how FME Cloud and everybody should be using it, stored like that, or FME server, ultimately one and the same. Although FME Cloud being that much closer in, from our case up to Amazon, the integration works seamless, and two great tools, especially if you like working within the serverless platform environment where you don't have to manage any of this stuff. It's a beautiful space. And that's it. Again, I mentioned those node package manage tools from that my colleague Matt here developed for FME Cloud and FME Server, 2 APIs. That's the URL. And with that, I guess, are there any questions? Sure, yeah.
How are you shutting down FME Cloud after the fact?
There is a, as part of the API, there's also the ability to, like once the workspace is done, or all the workspaces are done, it just, we'll shut it down. Yeah. And I think there's also a default you have where it will actually, you can say, run it to a maximum of a certain number of hours.
It's actually the end of the video.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah,
So
sure.
That in effect reduce the cost of almost a transaction.
That's right.
Basis.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you doing any optimization, like to keep, for instance, running for almost an hour, or you start every time, even if it runs only 3 minutes, you shut it down?
That is a good question. Well, we know, well, fingers crossed, that this entire, series of steps runs through, and typically it's over, could be 20, 100 tiles, and so it will take definitely longer than an hour. And so, sure, if you were running, that one workbench which develops the tile scheme and then shuts it down and then starts it back up again, that's a 2-second workspace to run. That wouldn't make any sense. So it's really I think when you see bigger chunks of work that need to be done, and they should run, start it at the beginning, run the whole thing, shut it down at the end. Yeah. Any more? Yeah. Oh, I've seen actually lots of opportunities here. I think people have mentioned where you have a whole bunch of workspaces that you need to be done, and how do you orchestrate them? How do you get them to run? That's where I think this is a really great tool. It's working well for us. When you have 24 workbenches that need to be run, and as I mentioned, the beautiful part is each step could be an automated process, but it could be something you completely do manually, and put data back in the right spot. As part of data management, you put it back where it should be, and then it's a good way for your project manager to see, here's this big high-resolution inventory that needs to be done. Where are we? Imagine getting a image every day in your Slack channel. Here's where the HRIS is for this particular project today. Right? I don't know. That's our thought. Yep. Yep.
Maybe evaluating other platforms as well to run that code, maybe Azure, or
No.
just have, we stuck with Amazon?
Yeah, just Amazon.
Leader technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Just no, just stuck with Amazon. Amazon is where we work. I don't know if I'd have to does Lambda exist? Something like it on Azure, probably. Steps, I'm not too sure. For Amazon, it's only 6 months old, 8 months old. So, I don't know. Yep.
How did you do this before Lambda and Step?
Yeah. Okay, so how do we do this before? Well, SQS and S3, and then manually, right? You sort of run one and you run the next, and
A bunch of workspace runners?
yeah, a bunch of workspace runners, and yeah.
We're kind of there. We've got two servers talking to each other and running
Do you?
control
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I have no doubt at some point it's our general to do. We usually open source things, so I think this will appear as this knowledge will appear in our GitHub repo at some point. Yeah. Any more? Awesome. Thank you very much.